Hello, thank you so much for being here. Today, we're going to be talking about psychological safety 101. So, giving you the basics of what is psychological safety, what are the benefits of it, what are some of the challenges when you don't have it, and so on. And so, the first part is I want to give you a decent definition of psychological safety. And this is done by a woman named Amy Edmondson, and she talks about how psychological safety is a belief that people will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with any ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes, right? So I know that if I speak up, that I'm going to be okay, that I'm going to be safe, that everything's going to be all right, rather than I'm worried about being judged. I'm worrying about being put down. I'm worried about being less than. I'm worried about being stupid. I'm worried about looking incompetent and losing my job. Psychological safety is I know that I could speak up and I will be supported, I will be understood, and everything's going to be okay. And so that's kind of the element of what psychological safety is. And I want to give you a little bit of research behind it as well. So, Amy Edmondson, again, did some research on psychological safety. And what she found was she did research at a hospital looking at high performing teams. And she wanted to understand, do high performing teams make more mistakes or less mistakes? And what she found out through her research was that high performing teams actually made more mistakes, which was kind of odd to her. She didn't really understand that piece. So she dove in deeper. What she found was that they don't actually make more mistakes, is that high performing teams are willing to admit to more mistakes. See, the lower performing teams, they didn't feel comfortable sharing mistakes. They didn't feel comfortable speaking up. So a high performing team has a space to be able to be vulnerable and honest about the mistakes that they made. Now, another bit of research was done by Google, and they looked at their own teams, trying to understand, okay, what is it about our teams that create such high performing elements, such innovative teams? What are the basic elements of it? What are the commonalities? Well, they, after researching 180 of their own teams, they identified 5 different things of it. But the most fundamental, the most needed part was a sense of psychological safety, that people would be willing to challenge each other's ideas and that everything's going to be okay. And so this idea of psychological safety is fundamentally needed in high performing teams, in creative teams. And there's a lot of great benefits when you and your team feel psychologically safe. It starts opening up the conversation. So if I feel comfortable speaking up, well, okay, let's have a real conversation. Let's be vulnerable. Let's be honest with one another. And when you start getting people to do that, it also increases creativity. Now, one of the elements of creativity is just having a sheer number of ideas, quantity over quality, which is a story for another day. But if I don't feel safe with sharing my idea, I'm going to hold back. I'm not going to share with you this idea. So, psychological safety allows for more creativity to happen because people feel more comfortable opening up about different ideas. And so now that we're able to do that, another thing that happens is that people are able to take more risks because they're not going to get fired when they make a mistake. They're not going to be put down if they don't succeed. They're not going to be belittled or seen as less than, because they are safe to do so, because they know that if they make risks, they could potentially fail, but they're not going to get fired for doing that. Another great benefit is that it speeds up learning. Psychological safety helps speed up the learning because we all can share about our own mistakes, about our own challenges that we're trying to overcome. And when I can share that with the group, then everyone gets to learn faster instead of you having to go through a mistake that I already went through, but I'm not going to tell you about it because I don't want to look stupid. So it speeds up the collective learning. It also allows for a lot of productive disagreement where I can challenge your idea, but I'm not talking anything less than or bad about you. But the idea we can go back and forth on and have different perspectives and still respect each other's perspectives and work to understand each other's perspectives rather than saying, oh, that's stupid. What a dumb thought. What a the dumb perspective. So it allows for productive disagreement to happen. A lot of times with psychological safety, when there isn't any, people want to leave. People don't want to stay at a place where they don't feel psychologically safe. So it reduces turnover. Psychological safety helps reduce that turnover because if I don't feel safe, which is a very fundamental need, Maslow's hierarchy, I'm going to go look for it somewhere else. So if you're having a high turnover rate, that can be one of the issues. And then it's just a great foundation for building trust where I start trusting you more and you start trusting me more. And we're willing to kind of trust each other in the process a little bit more because of it. So those are just some of the really lovely benefits of psychological safety. And so if you don't have it, it can be really detrimental. Like I said, people see mistakes as a threat to their career. People are keeping ideas to themselves, so they're not getting to share any of that. People aren't willing to challenge one another. There's also a thing called toxic positivity. And so with toxic positivity, it's where we think everything is fine, but on the surface, everything is fine, but underneath the surface, there's a fear there. There's a fear of actually challenging one another. So that's kind of what happens when there's a lack of psychological safety. So you have these benefits, you have these things that it could really do, but when there isn't any, you're going to see a lot of detrimental things happening. And so you're really trying to identify when you want to start working in this, where are the places where people don't feel safe and why? That's a really, really great starting point. So let's say at a meeting, you don't feel comfortable at a meeting. Okay, let's try to understand why don't you feel comfortable being open at a meeting? Is it because people are talking over one another? People put down each other's ideas, or, right? So that's kind of the starting point is when we're trying to create psychological safety in the workplace, really trying to understand, okay, what's going on here? And then when you have a sense of what's going on, then you can start shifting things in the culture and the environment on what it is that you can do. And we have a whole bunch of other videos on that, so feel free to check it out. Now, I will say one thing that I want to be really clear on about psychological safety is that a lot of times when people are trying to create it, here's one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're trying to create psychological safety in the workplace. They focus on values like respect, kindness, trust, things like that, empathy, compassion, which are all wonderful things. And these values is something that can help bring us together. But I might view respect one way and you might view respect differently. And so we all want respect, but it's not necessarily the values that are going to create the psychological safety. It's going to be the behaviors, right? So for example, if we want to say we value respect, well, what does that look like? Well, a clear behavior that you can do around respect is when you disagree with someone, show that you understand what they're saying before you show how you disagree with them, right? That could be an example of respect. That's a very clear, specific behavior rather than just having the value of, oh, we'll just all respect one another. Let's get clear, right? So we're like, okay, let's listen more. That's what we'll do. Well, listening isn't a very clear behavior. But again, maybe reflecting back what someone just said, well, that shows that you're listening. So really be mindful of this one thing that people get kind of confused on and all that when trying to create psychological safety in the workplace is it's really about the behaviors rather than just the values. So those are the places that you can start. And so I hope that this was helpful for you. If you want to dive in more into psychological safety and creating it in the workplace, we have a free download for you. So in the description below, we have a PDF that you can download that gives you a very clear step-by-step process of what you and your team can do to help create more psychological safety in the workplace. We talk about principles and clear actions that you all could take. And again, I hope that this was very helpful. I just want to say thank you so much for spending the time with us today. Have a great day.